Today I'll be talking about button layouts. So as most of you probably know, I'm using the Totsu layout, which means I attack with my right bumper, and my support calls are my Y or triangle and circle or B. So I'll be focusing on 3 different layouts, and the third one technically isn't a layout, but I'll get onto that. And I will tell you the advantages and the disadvantages of each one. And here's just a warning or like a tip. Do not change your controls after you played with one for a month or 2, because changing it's just gonna reset all your progress. And then let's say you want to change back, then you're gonna reset your progress even more. So just choose at the beginning. If you only played for a few days or a week or something, then this video probably is alright. You can adapt to these new methods if you want. But for you guys who have been playing for like a year or 6 months or however long, maybe don't change, but I'm just going to tell you the disadvantages and advantages anyway. If you really want to change because some of the benefits really intrigue you, then sure. But don't do it just because you want to change it. First off, we have default controls. Before we get deep into the controls, let me just say you can do all tech on all controls. Maybe there's a few where you have like buttons all over the place, but most controls you can do all the tech and everything you need. You just need to practice. The advantages for default controls is that most people use it, so you don't have to change it every time you go into other people's consoles. Guide channels, tutorials, they mostly use this layout, so you won't get confused if you change it. And mainly it's just the one that people use the most. Now the disadvantages of using default controls is that Stormfall is a game that uses the right analog stick to switch. Now if you're not using claw for this, it might be a tiny bit difficult. Sometimes you might use, the left thumb just comes over to help, but everything is still doable. That doesn't, obey the point. Next we have Totsu controls. This is the one I mainly use, and it's when you attack with your right bumper, charcoal with your left bumper, and then you go from there. The advantage of using Totsu controls is that switch tech is a tiny bit easier. You can press switch at the same time as you attack, for example, without using claw. Yeah, the main thing is just you can do switch tech a tiny bit easier. Now the disadvantage is that guide channels use normal controls. So if you try to learn something new, sometimes you might get a bit confused unless you're used to it. And also for some people, using the index finger is slower than using your thumb. That could cause trouble if you want to do some quick tech, or just anything quick in general. But that's really dependent. Mostly it's pretty good, I like it a lot, hence why I'm using it. Next we have Scuff. This is basically just normal controls, however you bind it to your back pedal. So for example, I'm pressing my right back pedal for attack, and the chakra for my left. You can change it to anything that you want, anything feels comfortable to you. The advantage is that switch tech is easier and more actions with both hands. So like right thumb doesn't really need to come over that much. Not at all if you bind it correctly. You can do switch tech with your right hand on the joystick without using claw or anything. I also really like this, but I'm using Totsu controls, so I won't be using this. Now the disadvantages that there aren't really disadvantages. Maybe you could say that you might press slow with your index finger or whatever you're using to press your back pedals, your middle finger. But I don't find that too difficult. I can do all the actions, I can do most things. And plus, since you're not changing your controls, you're only just binding to the back pedals, it doesn't really matter. And if you're watching guide channels, it still refers to as circle. This back pedals, I'm calling this circle. Watching guide channels don't become harder, You don't have to adapt to looking at different controls to a controller. There aren't really that many flaws to this. I mean, if you have a scuffed controller and you haven't really gone into play, this is probably your best option. But obviously there's countless options for rebinding your controls to wherever you want. These are just the main ones that people use, that I use. Hopefully this gives you a little insight on the controls you should be using. And also keep in mind, don't change your controls if you already played with them for a long time. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.